Welcome to the Dad Show podcast. How y'all doing? Today is part 3.
I mean, I hate to hear that their dad left them.
Right.
But I'm so proud of you for stepping up and stepping into that position and loving them and taking the extra effort to, fight those battles. Because I'm assuming at first it was not easy for them to accept you or even open up to you because they didn't want to open up, and then you just hit the road too.
Especially the daughter. I said the daughter. My daughter, when I first started coming around, I couldn't come around without her bringing up her dad because it's all she knew.
Yeah.
And so it don't matter if I'm joking and playing, if I do something funny, if I'm hugging her mom, she's like, "Mom, I miss my dad." Like that was the answer. But our son, he was still waiting on his dad. He still had an attitude like, "You're not my dad," And the crazy thing is, I would say probably just last week, he called me Pops for the first time.
Wow.
Since he know me, he's called me Mr. Casey. But he called me Pops for the first. He said, "Pops, can I get on the game?" I said, "Listen, you can get on the game 2 times."
Say it again, you can get on 3.
I can see him being comfortable, him letting his guard down and opening up. Yeah. And we have very intimate conversations that normally boys won't have with their fathers. You know what I'm saying? But because I already had to practice with my sons, I knew how to kind of reel him into a place of him knowing that he's safe.
Yeah. And that speaks volumes for you as a man and as a Christian man to, it'd be easier for any man to say, "Okay, go get your dad. I'm out."
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, just because the rejection portion of, those little things hurt, but you as a man and man, I like I said, I'm not just saying that as I'm proud of you for sticking in and being there, because that's huge, man, to fight that battle. And then you gain their trust, and now showing them as much love and compassion and Christ's love on top of that, man, is so big, and the way that they're going to grow up and what they're going to see and what they're going to seek through the rest of their life because of the difference that you've made in them.
It blessed me because they both have said, "I want my last name to be Casey."
Wow.
And
that's awesome, dude.
Because they look at mom, and mom's last name, she's got my last name. And the daughter's like, "I don't want nothing different. I need to be just like mom. That's dad. I want my name Casey." And the son came to me. He said the same thing. He said, "Mr. Casey, what do you think about me changing my last name Casey?" I said, "Listen, I talked to your mom about it, but I would be honored, And so I believe by God's grace, he's taught me a little bit, and it's rubbing off. By God's grace, I'm doing something right.
Isn't it so cool, man, to see, like, when you were going through all this stuff, through your divorce, through the move to Georgia, through your time on the streets, through coming to Christ, and all these trials and tribulations and everything, like, you're like, man, why, God?
Why? Right.
And now you're on this side of it. Isn't it so cool to see and thank God for everything that you've been through?
It makes sense when God says he works all things to the good. And so I may not have understood the process at that time, but seeing what he worked to the good from that process and how I can better father. And I got this confidence, Ryan, and I don't mean this in a boastful way, but because of what I've allowed God to invest, I believe I can father anybody.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I have the spirit of fatherhood, and God teaching me how to cultivate, how to be the source, how to break down, like you break down the soil, to plant the seed, to grow it. I know how to nurture. So I just believe like it could be a grown man and that didn't have his father. And God has given me tools that can help him, that can help heal the boy in him so he can become a better man.
Well, I mean, you're qualified. You told me a minute ago that your dad wasn't hardly in your life whenever you were growing up, that your mom. So why would I want to go to somebody that's had their dad all their life and knows what it's like to have him at home every single day? Who better qualified to teach someone like that? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
My dad, not to harp on this aspect, but my dad was a provider. He went to work, he was at work, and whenever I played baseball, he was the coach, but he was the one that was, you hit 5 home runs, but you missed second base. You missed that ground, or, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
picking out, like you said, all the positives.
Right.
He picked out the negatives because he thought pointing out my negatives
What's going to make you better.
is what's going to make me better. I already know how to do this stuff good.
Right.
But pointing out them negatives, and man, I tell you what, that's affected me my whole life.
Listen, I learned this. Me and you can grow up in the same household, and I believe this has happened in my family, but I'll use me and you as an example. We can grow up in the same household, and we can hear dad say or mom say, you don't do nothing right, and I can take that as, dang, I don't do nothing right, and I'm a failure. I'm not never going to be nothing. Like, I can go down that rabbit trail. And that could be a identity that I begin to walk in and I produce as I get older, is that I don't do nothing right. And then from that same words, if you don't do nothing right, you could take on this perfectionist. So if I do this right, then she'll understand it. So if I do this right, then I'll get her praise. And you have two people grow up in the same household, hear the same word, process it differently, and both of them are still a trauma response.
Yeah.
My trauma response is not feeling good enough. Your trauma response is now being a perfectionist to gain approval.
Yeah,
and it happens all the time.
Yeah, that's so true, man. And I would prefer to take the approach that you take now, having that over communication, compassion, showing love, showing grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that my son, I'm talking about some of the conversations my sons have, they come to me and I wouldn't have dared said it to my dad,
Yeah.
And the blessing is my sons at 16 and 17 years old, they love God. They got a conviction to please God. They're abstinent. They never smoke. They never drunk. Like, they're some good boys.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So and that's pretty unheard of.
Yeah.
These days.
Absolutely.
And I mean, they're teenagers. They're going to fail.
Yeah.
You tell me not to touch that hot plate. Well, I'm going to touch the hot plate just to make sure you're telling me the truth and learn from that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I grew up, was you could tell me anything, but I'm still going to do it.
I learned by bumping my head.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that did put a knot on there. I probably don't want to do that no more.
So we talked about your kids, man, you being a dad and your history and everything growing up. I want to just, let's touch on and help men be better husbands in their household. So,
Gotcha.
So what's a couple of things that you are sure to do with your wife to show her that, show her love or show her that you're there for her, show her that you're not going to leave? Just like I assume that just like the kids, your wife has that brokenness as well.
Yeah.
And so how did you go the extra mile to show her that I'm here to stay, babe? I'm fighting. Let's go.
Well, first, my wife, we both heard from God that was my wife and I was her husband. But like you said, because of how she was raised, because of the traumatic experiences, because of how the men were in her life, she was a runner. And she always testifies this. When we were dating, she broke up with me like 4 or 5 times. Oh my goodness. And being a person that dealt with rejection, that was hard.
Yeah.
But God really used her breaking up with me to cause me to heal from rejection. But I would tell her, I'm like, listen, I'm not going nowhere. I don't care after you run. Because she was a runner. So when we had conflict or things didn't look like it was supposed to be, or even when God used me to trigger some of the wounds that she still had because he wanted her to heal, she didn't know that it was God at the time. She looking at that, you bringing problems. And so she wants to run, and she wasn't running to a man. She was running to be by herself. She was running to safety.
Yeah. Harboring it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so no matter how much she ran, I would always profess to her, listen, I ain't going nowhere. God told me you my wife. I done went to God a couple times, like, Lord, is you sure? Yeah. Because this don't seem right. I said, God never changed his mind.
He put that stamp on it.
Exactly. So since he don't change his mind, I'm not changing my mind. And so I just stood on business, as they say in today's age. I stood 10 toes down and I listened to her, and I still listen to her to do everything I can to make her feel safe, to make her know that I'm not going nowhere, to allow her to understand that she's no longer in a place of she's doing things on her own or by herself, that she has help, and that she doesn't always have to figure things out because God has graced her with the man with the vision. And one of the greatest assets for me as a husband, and I believe that every husband can benefit from, is we have to stay intentional about our whys. We get into a place where we can start going with the flow, or we get so focused on business and providing and all of these different things when sometimes our wife just need us.
Yeah.
She just need us to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning. I ain't gonna say I've learned. I'm learning to be in the moment with my wife and not always talk about the business ideas, not always talk about church, not always talk about ministry, not always talk about what we're doing or what we have to do, but have some time where we can just sit and talk about us and make each other laugh and enjoy each other's company, because we can get so caught up in the technicalities of the relationship that you forget to be in the moment with your person.
Yeah.
And you have to have those conversations. You have to be in the moment with your person in order for that intimacy to continue to grow so y'all can grow closer together.
It's so easy to become business partners.
Yes.
It's so easy to become, just roommates.
Yes.
Because like you said, you're talking about what needs to be done at the house. You're talking about what needs to be done at the business. And I find me and my wife doing that. Like, we got the kids' appointments, we got the foundation to do, we got the podcast. Like,
it's so easy.
And that, man, that's so, like, I'm sitting here just feeling so much guilt while you're saying this, because I need to just sit in that moment with my wife and spend that intimate time with her. And just, even if we don't talk.
You know what my wife has taught me? And she learned this in therapy. And I kind of, when I went to therapy, it reiterated to me, check in with each other. So we do 2 check-ins. And it's not always, scripted, but I'll call her, or she'll call me, or she'll text me, or I'll text her, and we'll say, what have I done to frustrate you or to hurt you that you didn't say anything about? This is an opportunity for you to let me know. And then she'd be like, well, nothing, but when you did this one time, it did make me feel like that. Oh, okay, babe. Well, that wasn't my intentions. It allows us to have those conversations outside of conflict, so it don't lead to conflict. But then another thing that we do to check in is, babe, what can I do to love on you or support you this week or today? And that right there is thebomb.com, because we can feel like we're dotting all the I's or crossing all the T's. And I asked my wife, what can I do to love on you or support you? Well, when you get done today, I just need some attention.
Yeah.
I just need to feel you in my arms, or I need to be in your arms. I just want to lay with you. It gives the opportunity to meet the need without assuming that we're meeting the need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's big, man. And to spend that quality time.
And
opening up that line of communication.
Yes.
I tell my wife all the time, we need CCC. I need clear, concise communication on everything, whether it's this, I need to go pick the kids up to here, we need to go here.
Me too.
Or our relationship.
Right.
I don't need you to say, hey, just go over there and do that. No.
Right.
Clear, concise communication. And that to me is a big part of my relationship with my kids.
Yes.
It's a big part of my relationship with my wife, that I want you to 100% know if I'm mad, if I'm happy, or we're doing this, because, man, there's how many problems are in a marriage whenever you don't know what the other person's feeling.
And you have to read the other person's mind. I told my wife this. I said, I don't know what you need in the moment. And so if I don't know what you need in the moment, and you have an expectation for what I should be for you or be to you that you didn't articulate to me, I said, babe, I'm going to let you down every time. I said, so do me a favor, without pointing the finger at me, because if you point the finger at somebody, they're going to get defensive. If I say, Ryan, you don't love your wife, and you don't do this, you don't do this. If you don't agree with me, you're going to be like, Vince, I just bought my wife something to eat, and I make sure that my wife, you're going to defend yourself because you don't see it that way. And so one thing that I told her that works for me is, tell me how you feel and what you need without pointing the finger at me. And so it changes her language into, I need some attention. I need some affection.
Yeah.
And we, like you said, we got superhero syndrome. So you tell me what you need, I'm diving in to give it to you. Or instead of saying, I feel you do this, or I feel you do that, and put me on a defense, I feel unheard when this happens, or I feel insecure if I don't hear from you all day. It attaches a feeling to how you actually feel versus you telling me what I'm not doing, and it's not my intention to not do it. I don't know that I'm not doing it, but it gives me the opportunity to do it.
Exactly.
Without conflict.
And like you opened up to your sons and let them have that open free space to speak, and and still you weren't supposed to get defensive, but you did. It's so easy to want to defend that, but man, whenever it's pointed out and you learn from that, like, to grow constantly from that is big, and the potential to continue to grow. Like, just because you had this conversation 6 months ago doesn't mean you don't need to have it again.
Right.
Because we change. We're, ebb and flow the whole way through. So I may have been doing something that you pointed out then. Well, I may be doing something else now, or not doing something that you need to point out, and I need to re-click.
Yeah, absolutely. To go back into this space, one thing I realized is we cannot bully our kids into submission. If we bully our kids into submission, and we're doing that in front of our wives or our person, and we have conflict, and we get to talking to them how we talk to the kids, and they're going to be like, you treat me like I treat the kids. Right. So we have to love our kids. The Bible says this. The Bible says the goodness of the Lord leads a man to repentance. So that means by itself that God is there's not always consequences. There's not always correction. Sometimes God will bless us or love us or allows us to understand that he understands us to get us on the right path. Yeah. And so with that being said, sometimes we just got to pour on a little bit more love.
It cures a lot, don't it?
Absolutely.
So you've kind of hit on a little bit, but my last question for you is how, you take your car in for maintenance. You go get the tires checked, you go get the oil replaced, hey, give it a what do they call it, a 22-point inspection or whatever it is. So how do you put that? You've hit on it a couple times. You and your wife do check-ins together,
right?
And have that open line of communication. Is there anything else that you and your wife do now to make sure that your relationship and your marriage is maintenanced?
We do date night once a week. Every week we do date night. Even if we had a disagreement or we got upset while we getting dressed, we're going out on this date night, because something about when you get dressed and you being intentional and going out with each other, it's a different atmosphere. Sometimes the atmosphere of your house isn't conducive for the connection. Yeah. And so you have to, if this is the plan outside of checking in and doing all of those things to be intentional about your person, keep dating them.
Yeah.
Keep dating your wife.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
We only get one. Our kids go through so much stuff and the foundation, just so much work that me and my wife put date night off, because we're like, hey, that's something that can wait. We need to get this taken care of, or they need to have this surgery, or need to have this.
Right.
And we put that off, and dude, every time that we go out, we're like, we need to do this more.
Yes,
spend more time.
Absolutely.
So that's really huge.
And I like to eat. My wife likes to eat. And so a lot of our date nights end up at a restaurant, but my wife is so spontaneous. She actually just booked we just went to a place called Twisted Painting or something like that. And you bring a bottle of wine and you paint. We painted 2 different canvases, but when we put it together, it was one. So she'll book that. She'll book massages. She'll go to an escape room. Like, she likes experiences. Yeah. And so I love that she brought that to the table, because I've always been a person that goes with the flow. Yeah. And I'm spontaneous. Like, I'll out the blue say, let's go to Dave & Buster's and play all the game. Yeah. I'm very spontaneous, but she's very intentional. She's very planned out. And so I had to tell her, like, listen, don't be so mad at me if I don't plan, baby. That's your strength. Yeah. Make the plan. I'm going, That's exactly. But even with that, I still have to make sure that I do plan sometime, because it allows her to feel pursued. Yeah. And know that there is intentionality in that aspect as well.
Yeah, that's me and my wife 100%. I'll be like the one, hey, let's go do this. She's like, well, hold on. Is it on the calendar? No, it's not. Well, we're going.
Right. And you need some of that spontaneity sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what makes y'all fit together.
Figuring that out, and we could go down a rabbit hole, and I'm not going to, like, figuring that out together. Like, what, like, hey, we're going over here. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to figure it out.
Right.
That, I can't even think of the word, but you all together, getting together and figuring it out, what's going to happen, or just like letting go.
Right.
Just having no care in the world, or whatever happens.
Right.
That right there too brings a lot of, closeness.
And you saying figuring it out together, I realized one of the biggest challenges that I had with my wife was when we got together, I was very independent. So like I said, I grew up in a household with just mom, no dad. So I cook, I clean, I pick the kids up from practice, I do the laundry. Like I take care of me.
Yeah.
So she comes into the picture and she prides herself in doing these things. And I got me. And she's like, well, what do you need me for? And so I had to start relinquishing some of those things to her or figuring out how we could do it together. But then also because she's so good at that aspect of it and doing some of the administrative stuff is even more serious that I have to be intentional about loving on her, about massaging her feet, about taking her out. Because if not, then she's going to feel like she's doing all of this stuff for me, but I'm not pouring into her cup.
Yeah.
She's become the administrator of everything, but where is she getting her love from?
Yeah. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
That's real big. So real quick, these, tell anybody that's listening, because man, I'm fired up just being in this room talking to you for the last hour.
Likewise.
And so, man, I want other people to feel that as well. So is there anywhere on social media that people can find or reach out?
Not Your Average Minister.
Okay.
On all platforms.
All right.
Not Your Average Minister.
Okay. I'll
That's
put
how
it
you
on the
find it.
screen as well. So that
Thank you.
So, man, I want to thank you for driving down and being on the Dad Show and being vulnerable, telling your story, telling your testimony, man, because it's helped me today. So I know you're going to help many more. So
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for being here.
I appreciate you too, Ryan.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for having me.
Thank you, man.
And thank God for divine connection.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is awesome. This is great. So the rest of you, thank you for being with us. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. As always, we love you, we care about you, and we're proud of you. Hope you have a blessed day.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Dad Show podcast. Please like, review, and subscribe.